My girlfriend's parents own a vineyard. This vineyard goes way back to, I think, like her dad's, all the way back many generations. It's a vineyard. They grow grapes. This past weekend, we went to this vineyard. It's just outside of Varaždin, which is a little town, a little city. Be careful not to call it a town, much less a village. It's a big, important city in Croatia. And right outside of this big, important city is this vineyard. And we went there this past weekend, my girlfriend and her parents and like 3 or 4 other people, to pick grapes, carry them into the special room, crush them and press them, leak the fluid down into buckets, mix in some fungi and stuff, and begin the process of making wine. It was really cool. I shot some footage. I want to lead you guys through this, show you what it was, and share some kind of insights I had about work and different ways of life along the way. But first, mofo, hit the subscribe button. Ding! Hit the notifications button. Ding! Ciao, bella. So a day of winemaking in the vineyard begins with picking the grapes. So that's the first thing we did in the morning. We got our gloves, we got our clippers, and we got to work. First, we picked the white grapes. Some of the white grapes were a sweeter white grape for a sweet wine, a muscatello, I think they call it. And some of them were just like a Chardonnay grape. The grape. You start at the bottom of the vineyard and then you work your way up. And you pick on the opposite side of the vine where the sun is shining so you don't get baked in the sun. Toni and I had a lot of fun picking grapes. The grape. What's a grape in Croatian?
Groźdźe.
Grosze. Grosze. It's like Italian.
Groźdźe.
Groce. I'm just cutting the grapes. As I said before, which you didn't film, I understand actors when they get really pissed off.
Who?
Actors, when they get really pissed off and start yelling
I'm
at people.
filming now, for fuck's sake. Come here,
Do
under.
it.
No, so from this side. Oh my god, from this side, darling. I know what angle I want.
I'm the director, honey.
No, don't like this.
Just fucking cut. Do something. Eat a grape. How is it? Walking up and down the path, cutting these grapes in the sun, I began to feel that old feeling of samu, where the work gets down into the back of your muscles and starts to drain that tense, anxious, or depressed energy from your head. Begins to pull that energy into your muscles because your muscles are like, dude, I know you got a lot to do most of the time, and so we give all our energy to you. But right now he's using us. So you, Mr. Brain, need to take a break. We're gonna take over from here, okay? You can have all your energy back tomorrow when you're sitting in front of the internet typing numbers into the Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is you do. We don't know, right? So I noticed a deep relaxation came over me, and I wasn't thinking. For 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I wasn't thinking. And I talked to somebody recently and they asked me, what do you do when you're meditating? Like, what do you think about? Or how do you stop thinking? All these questions about thinking. The samu practice in the vineyard of picking grapes was a good reminder of what you're supposed to do when you're meditating. Nothing. Giving the brain a break. I forget this because I'm a thinker. And so I think I have to think my way out of every problem, including the problem of thinking. I'm filled with grapes. And I'm suffering. After we picked the grapes, we took them up to this special room and we crushed the heck out of these grapes in a grape crushing mechanism. And then after the grape crushing mechanism mechanistically crushed all these grapes, we took the mechanistically crushed grape slop and we put it in this old wooden device that Toni's father said was retro technology. And we squeezed the heck out of all this grape slop and out came what they call sturm, young wine. And then after we crushed these grapes, we came down below to this room that was below the grape crushing room.
Okay, what are you doing now, darling?
I'm stirring clockwise. And the technical reason for the clockwise stirring is, what was it?
Sediment to go down.
Yeah, the sediment is going down, and they do it clockwise because of your dad's superstitions.
And we put this
We put
Kalium or something to stop fermentation.
Yeah, we put something in to stop fermentation. This has been the whole process. This is now just a big vat of diarrhea juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're working here, and the dog is sleeping, and people are having fun on the terrace. So we're
the wine slaves. Yeah. So how often do we think about it? How often do we think about how our wine gets made, how our food gets made? I was talking to my girlfriend Toni's dad, and he grew up, I guess what you would call rural or poor. I mean, nobody in his family had ever gone to college. He was supposed to take over the family farm. He's a doctor now. He became a doctor, and he did very well in life. And he came such a long way. And he had this interesting comment after we went grape picking, as we were all sitting around and drinking wine and eating these wonderful vegetables that came from the garden. Toni's dad was talking about how he lived when he was a kid, and he said our standard of living was probably about 10 times worse, but our quality of life was not 10 times worse. He said it was almost equal, maybe a little bit worse, maybe a little bit better. I liked that distinction between standard of living and quality of life. My standard of living as a monk was pretty low, but the quality of life was very high. I tweeted a tweet not too long ago, and I was quoting Cornel West, whom I really like to listen to on the topics of race and capitalism. One of his ideas is that people are not just naturally racist. They don't have an inborn urge to just hate each other. It's kind of like one guy looks at the other guy and he says, you know, we're making a lot of money on this cotton plantation. Yes, we are. But you know what would let us make a lot more money on this cotton plantation? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Indeed I am. Free labor. Do you know anyone we could grab and force to do free labor? And from that deep urge for more profit, all sorts of wacky, effed up, immoral frameworks are formed, and societies begin to be built up around these screwy ideas, like slavery. After I sent this tweet out, somebody responded, and whenever I post anything about capitalism, somebody's going to respond, and they said, as opposed to socialism, where everyone is treated great in gulags and firing squads and daily life is like a prison. And I found myself thinking, and I didn't tweet back because I never do and I never will. The best I'll do is like a tweet that's trying to pull me into the outrage game, but I'll never respond. But I did think about it. And what I thought was, really? You can't even imagine a world that's not, as Zadie Smith said, full of people who know the price of everything but the value of nothing? You can't even imagine a world where, I don't know, just imagine it. You can grow your own food, pick your own grapes, make your own wine. I'm not saying that's a better way of life. I'm not saying we should go back to that. I'm not saying we can go back to that. But having lived at a monastery and having seen what work can be, which is not just an exchange of your life energy for the green pieces of paper that will allow you to keep living so that you can in turn exchange your life energy for the green pieces of paper. Having lived at a monastery and had a schedule where we did work. We did hard work at the monastery. But then we would rest, we would sit, we would socialize a little bit, very little bit. We would do koan practice with our teacher. We would chant or sing together, if you will. It was somewhere in between the perfect commune and Navy SEALs training camp. And one of the reasons I think it really worked is because we were reigned over by a philosopher king in the Platonic sense. Plato talked about how the perfect system of governance was a philosopher king. And that's in many ways what my teacher Sasaki Roshi was. He was a philosopher king, a benevolent tyrant, and a little emperor. He liked to be the man in charge. And that ultimately led to real problems and exactly the kind of problems you can imagine. There were no checks to balance Roshi out. So no system is ever going to be perfect. But when I sit there and I watch the news and I see people telling me what my options are to dream about or to imagine, like the options are Trump or Biden, right? The options are Mike Pence or Kamala Harris. The options are Republican or Democrat. When I see these options being laid out before me, I call upon the power of the imagination, like a thought experiment. Are those really my only options? Imagination requires a really open mind, requires letting go of these binary, dualistic options. It's easy to get trapped in that dualistic thinking. Our job is to keep open minds. Our job is to have a little bit of vision. Our job is to just walk down the middle where there's always creativity, where there's possibility. Because we choose the society we live in. We choose it step by step. Just like those slaveholders. They chose that whole society. It was not inevitable. That was a choice, and that choice was made by people putting the profit motive above all else. Even the humanity of these slaves and their own humanity as they enslaved. People love to rein in your open mind. They love to slam it shut with their own ideas inside it. There's like a cottage industry built around doing just that. Because if they can get you to think a certain way, then they can get you to vote a certain way, they can get you to buy certain products. When I went to the monastery, I dropped out of that way of life. That was no longer my bag. The value instead was very poorly, roughly, and loosely put, enlightenment. Transcending your ego. Doing the practice of dissolving the self completely. I think this is a better value than the profit motive, financial profit motive. It's good to just take a look around every now and then, walking through the park, walking through the city, seeing a bunch of people, seeing a bunch of buildings, seeing everybody going to work, and just thinking this isn't necessarily how it has to be. It is this way, but it doesn't have to be this way. Just let yourself imagine it. Imagination is an incredibly powerful tool and gift. Let yourself dream. Let yourself think. Let yourself imagine. Little butterflies and bats of inspiration from caverns way, way down inside you start fluttering up. Speaking the secrets of what lies down below, but you gotta let them come up. And you don't have to do anything with the ideas. You don't have to do anything. That's key, I've found, is not putting this wall of pressure on myself to grab the ideas and turn them into a new life path or an addendum to my current life path, not put them in the service of profiting me in some way, not yoking them like sled dogs to my life project and whipping them and making them pull me along, but just letting the ideas flow up. Daydreaming about how to live and what could be. I think there are more options, more ways of life, more ways of thinking, more ways of doing things open to us than we're generally willing to accept. Freedom is a burden, but freedom is what the Zen path is all about. Becoming free. Free of your ideas, free of your expectations, free of yourself, and free of other people's selves. Free. Free to make your own path through life. Oh, well, hello there. Just finished editing this video. Say what you want about it, but you can't say I didn't try. I always like to finish these anti-capitalist screeds with an unironic invitation for you to join me on Patreon. Or if you choose to support this channel through PayPal, there are links in the bio. As you can see, I have some material needs in order to keep producing these videos. These Sony headphones have been glued together after breaking repeatedly. Seems as though my girlfriend sat on them the other day, and that's it. We were on the bus coming home from Croatia, and I said, I'm gonna leave these headphones on the seat so that nobody will sit here, because we were getting off to go to the bathroom. And she said, okay, totally get it. And as she was saying it, she just got up and sat right on them. So any support you can give to this channel helps me meet the material needs that I have to keep on producing these videos. Thank you for your support. See you next time.